The message arrived on a Tuesday morning Earth Standard Time. It came through every communication channel humanity possessed. Radios crackled with it. Television screens displayed it. Computer monitors flashed the same words in 1,000 languages. Even old satellites that had been silent for decades suddenly broadcast the message. Admiral Daiho stood in the command center of Earth's defense headquarters, watching the translation scroll across the main screen. His gray uniform was pressed and perfect, but his face showed the strain of 3 sleepless nights. Around him, officers and technicians moved with controlled panic, trying to understand what was happening. The message was simple and cold. The Galactic Council demanded humanity's presence. They had listed crimes, violations, and breaches of laws that humans had never heard of before. Earth was to send representatives immediately. The location was provided. The date was set. There would be no negotiation about this. Daiho read the message 3 times. Each time his jaw tightened a little more. The council spoke as if humanity were children caught stealing candy. They used words like summons and compliance and judgment. They assumed Earth would simply obey. "They think we're helpless," said Captain Hyjin, standing beside him. She was younger than Daiho, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Her engineering background made her see problems differently than military officers. "They think we'll come crawling." "Maybe they're right to think so," muttered Lieutenant Teijin from his station. He was the best pilot humanity had ever produced, but even he sounded worried. "We've only had contact with them for 6 months. We don't know how powerful they are." Daiho turned to face his team. The command center was deep underground, protected by layers of concrete and steel. It had been built during the early days of space exploration, when humanity still feared invasion. Now it seemed that fear had been justified. "Get me the president," Daiho said quietly, "and wake up everyone on the special projects list. I want a meeting in 1 hour." The president of Earth appeared on screen within minutes. She looked tired too. Everyone looked tired these days. First contact with alien life should have been humanity's greatest moment. Instead, it had become a nightmare of regulations, demands, and threats. "Admiral," the president said, "I've seen the message. What are your thoughts?" "We should go," Daiho said. "But not the way they expect." The president raised an eyebrow. "Explain." "They want us to send a small delegation. A few diplomats, maybe some scientists. They want us to arrive quietly and listen to their judgment. They expect us to be afraid." Daiho paused. "I suggest we show them something different." Within the hour, the command center was filled with humanity's best minds. Hyjin stood near the front along with Mirai, the chief scientist of the weapons development program. Ji-won, Earth's top diplomat, sat with her hands folded, listening carefully. Teijin remained at his station, already running calculations. Daiho stood before them all. Behind him, screens showed images of the Galactic Council's territory. It was vast, spanning hundreds of worlds. Earth was nothing compared to it. A single planet with a single species barely beginning to explore its own solar system. "They think we're weak," Daiho began. "And by their standards, we probably are. They have thousands of ships, millions of soldiers, technology that seems like magic to us." He paused. "But they've made a mistake." "What mistake?" asked Mirai. She was small and quiet, but her mind was brilliant. She had been the one to crack the alien technology that Earth had secretly recovered over the past 6 months. "They told us too much," Daiho said. "When they made contact, they showed us their ships, their weapons, their power sources. They did it to intimidate us. They wanted us to know we couldn't fight them." He smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. "They didn't realize we would study everything they showed us." Hyjin stepped forward. "The special projects have been successful. We've reverse-engineered most of their basic technology. We can't match their power yet, but we can surprise them." "How many ships can we field?" asked G1. 250 combat-ready vessels, Teijin reported. "They're not as advanced as council ships, but they're fast and they're armed. We finished the last one yesterday." The room went quiet. Everyone knew what Daiho was suggesting. It was risky. It was possibly insane, but it might be the only way to save humanity from becoming slaves to the council. "We'll go to their meeting," Daiho said. "We'll send our delegation. But we won't go alone." He pointed at the star map behind him. "We'll bring every ship we have. We'll arrive in their space like a storm. We'll show them that humanity doesn't crawl. We stand. And if they try to force us to kneel, we'll fight." "They could destroy us," someone said from the back of the room. "Maybe. Daeho agreed. But we'll make them pay for it. And maybe, just maybe, they'll decide it's easier to negotiate than to fight. The president's face appeared on screen again. She had been listening to everything. This is a huge risk, Admiral. Yes, ma'am. If this goes wrong, it could mean the end of humanity. If we go the way they expect, we'll end up as their servants anyway. At least this way we have a chance. The president was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded. Do it. Prepare the fleet. I'll address the world tonight. People deserve to know what we're facing. The meeting ended. People scattered to their duties. Hyejin stayed behind with Daeho. You really think this will work? She asked. I think they've never met anyone like us before, Daeho said. Every species in the council learned to obey. They joined peacefully or they were conquered. But humans? He shook his head. We've been fighting each other for thousands of years. We know war better than they ever will. Maybe that will make the difference. 3 days later, the fleet launched. 250 ships rose from Earth, Mars, and the orbital stations. They were a mix of designs, some sleek and new, others retrofitted from old cargo vessels. But all of them carried weapons that Mireille's team had designed. Daeho stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, humanity's flagship. It wasn't the biggest ship in the fleet, but it was the fastest and best armed. Around him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency. Jump drives are charged, reported Taejin, who had insisted on piloting the flagship himself. All ships report ready, added Hyejin from the engineering station. Daeho looked at the view screen. Earth hung there, blue and beautiful. Humanity's home. Everything they were about to do was to protect it. Signal the fleet, Daeho said. We jump in 5 minutes. Destination, Galactic Council space. What should we transmit when we arrive? Asked the communications officer. Daeho thought for a moment. Tell them humanity has received their summons. Tell them we're coming, and tell them we're not coming alone. The 5 minutes passed in silence. Each person on the bridge knew this might be their last journey, but not one of them showed fear. Jump in 3, 2, 1, counted Taejin. The stars shifted. The fleet vanished from Earth's solar system. And across the galaxy, sensors in council space suddenly screamed warnings. Something massive was coming. Something they had never expected. Humanity had arrived. The council chamber was the largest structure ever built in known space. It floated in orbit around a dead star, a massive ring of metal and crystal that could be seen from halfway across the system. Inside, representatives from 3,000 different species gathered to discuss, debate, and decide the fate of entire worlds. Today, the chamber was packed. Word had spread about the human situation. Many species remembered their own first contact with the council. Most had submitted peacefully. A few had resisted and been crushed. Everyone was curious to see what these humans would do. Speaker Valthine stood at the center podium. He was tall and thin, with skin that shimmered like oil on water. His species had founded the council 10,000 years ago. They had brought order to chaos, law to lawlessness. He took pride in that history. But today Valthine felt uneasy. The reports from the border sensors troubled him. The humans weren't sending a small diplomatic ship. They were bringing something much larger. The session will begin, Valthine announced. His voice echoed through the chamber, translated instantly into thousands of languages. We gather to address the violations committed by the species known as humanity. Around him, the council members settled into their seats. Some were humanoid, others were completely alien, floating in tanks of liquid or existing as clouds of gas held together by force fields. All of them watched the empty space where the human delegation would appear. The charges are clear, Valthine continued. He gestured, and holographic displays appeared throughout the chamber. The humans have colonized 17 worlds without authorization. They have ignored territorial boundaries. They have refused to submit to genetic registration protocols. They have built military vessels in violation of newcomer restrictions. Murmurs spread through the chamber. These were serious violations. Normally, such crimes would result in immediate military action. But the council preferred to offer mercy first. They would give the humans one chance to submit. Bring in the human delegation, Valthine commanded. The massive doors at the far end of the chamber began to open. They were designed to be impressive, to make newcomers feel small and insignificant. Valthine had seen countless species walk through those doors with their heads bowed in fear. But when Hyejin stepped through, her head was held high. She walked alone across the vast floor of the chamber. Her boots clicked on the polished stone. She wore a simple gray uniform with no decorations or medals. Her face showed no fear, no hesitation. She walked like someone who belonged there. Behind her, the doors remained open, and through them, visible on the massive view screens that lined the chamber walls, the human fleet could be seen. 250 ships arranged in perfect formation, their weapons clearly visible. The murmurs became gasps, then angry shouts. "Outrageous!" someone yelled. "They dare bring weapons to council space? This is a violation of the highest order!" Valthine raised his hand for silence. It took several minutes for the chamber to quiet down. He stared at Hee-jin, trying to read her expression. She stared back, calm and composed. "Human," Valthine said slowly. "You were summoned to answer for your crimes. You were not authorized to bring a military fleet." "We weren't unauthorized either," Hee-jin replied. Her voice was steady and clear. "Your message didn't say we couldn't bring ships. It just said to come. Do not play word games with me," Valthine said coldly. "You know what was expected?" "We know what you expected," Hee-jin agreed. "You expected us to come begging. You expected us to be afraid. You expected us to surrender before you even spoke." She paused. "You expected wrong." The chamber erupted in chaos. Council members shouted in hundreds of different languages. Some demanded the humans be arrested immediately. Others called for the fleet to be destroyed. A few, very few, said nothing and simply watched with interest. Valthine slammed his staff against the floor. The sound boomed through the chamber like thunder. Silence. When quiet returned, Valthine focused all his attention on Hee-jin. "You are one species. One small primitive species. We are 3,000 civilizations. We have existed for longer than your species has had language. You cannot threaten us." "We're not threatening anyone," Hee-jin said calmly. "We're just making sure we're not threatened either." "You will submit to council authority," Valthine declared. "You will accept our judgment. You will follow our laws." "No," Hee-jin said simply. That single word seemed to freeze the air in the chamber. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Nobody had ever said no to the council before. Not like this. "Not so directly. You refuse?" Valthine said slowly. "We refuse," Hee-jin confirmed. "We refuse to ask permission to expand. We refuse to register our genetics like livestock. We refuse to disarm while surrounded by potential enemies. We refuse to become subjects of the council." "Then you choose war," Valthine said. "You choose destruction." "We choose freedom," Hee-jin corrected. "What you choose is up to you." A council member from the military faction stood up. He was massive, covered in armor like scales. "You are fools. We have crushed species far stronger than you. We have weapons that could turn your homeworld to dust. What makes you think you can resist us?" Hee-jin smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. It wasn't a friendly smile. "Because we've been studying you for 6 months. Because we've learned your technology. Because we know your weaknesses." She gestured to the view screen. "And because we're already inside your defenses." "Impossible," the military officer scoffed. "Our sensors would have detected any infiltration." "Your sensors did detect something," Hee-jin said. "About 3 minutes ago. You just don't know what it means yet." Valthine's blood ran cold. He turned to his security chief. "What is she talking about?" The security chief was frantically checking displays. His face showed confusion, then horror. "Speaker, I'm detecting unusual signals throughout the station. They appeared suddenly. I don't understand how." "Those are our access nodes," Hee-jin explained calmly. "While everyone was watching our ships arrive, our tech teams were installing them throughout your station. We can now access any system in this facility." "That's impossible," the security chief shouted. "Our networks are completely secure." "They were secure against council technology," Hee-jin agreed. "But we don't use council technology anymore. We use human technology, and we built it specifically to crack your systems." She pulled out a small device from her pocket. It looked simple, almost primitive, but when she pressed a button on it, every screen in the chamber flickered. "That was us taking control of your displays," Hee-jin said. "Want to see what else we can do?" "Stop," Valthine commanded. "This is an act of war." "This is a demonstration," Hee-jin corrected. "We could have shut down life support. We could have disabled your gravity. We could have locked every door and trapped you all inside. But we didn't, because we don't want war. We just want you to understand that we're not helpless." Ji-won entered the chamber then. She had been waiting outside, and this was her cue. She was older than Hee-jin, with gray in her hair and the steady manner of someone who had negotiated difficult agreements for decades. "Honored Council," Jiwan said, her voice diplomatic and smooth. "I am here to discuss terms." "Terms?" Valthine said incredulously. "You come here with weapons and threats and you speak of terms?" "We come here with strength and options," Jiwan replied. "You summoned us to judge our crimes, but we see no crimes. We expanded into empty space. We colonized lifeless world. We built defenses to protect ourselves. These are not crimes. These are the actions of any species that wishes to survive." "You ignored council law," Valthine stated. "We never agreed to council law," Jiwan countered. "You contacted us 6 months ago. You told us we had to obey rules we never agreed to follow. You demanded we accept restrictions we never negotiated. You treated us like subjects when we never became members of your council. All species must follow council law," Valthine said. "That is how civilization survives." "That's how your civilization survives," Jiwan corrected gently. "But it's not the only way. Humanity has survived for hundreds of thousands of years. We've built civilizations, destroyed them, and built them again. We've learned to adapt, and we've learned that freedom is worth fighting for." "Pretty words," the military officer sneered. "But words won't stop our fleets." "Neither will your fleet stop ours," Hijin said coldly. She pressed another button on her device. The view screens changed to show different images. Council military bases, council shipyards, council government buildings, and around each one small human ships held position. "While you gathered here to judge us," Hijin said, "we positioned ships at every major military installation in council space. We're not just at your doorstep. We're inside your house." The chamber fell silent. Every council member stared at the screens in disbelief. The military officer's face had gone pale. "This is impossible," someone whispered. "This is humanity," Yejin replied. "We don't play by your rules. We make our own." Valthine sat down slowly. He felt old suddenly, older than his 800 years. The council had always been supreme, always been in control, but these humans had changed everything in a single day. "What do you want?" he asked quietly. Jiwan stepped forward. "Autonomy. We want to govern ourselves, expand as we choose, and defend ourselves as we see fit. We don't want to conquer anyone. We don't want to destroy the council. We just want to be left alone. And if we refuse..." The council chamber remained frozen in shocked silence. Valthine could hear his own heartbeat, slow and heavy. Around him, 3,000 representatives sat motionless, trying to process what had just happened. The humans had infiltrated their most secure facility. They had positioned weapons throughout council space. They had done the impossible. "I request a recess," Valthine said finally. His voice sounded tired even to himself. "The council must discuss this situation privately." "Take all the time you need," Jiwan said graciously. "We'll wait." Hyejin and Jiwan walked back toward the entrance. Their footsteps echoed in the silent chamber. Every eye followed them. Some looks were angry, others were frightened. A few showed something that might have been respect. When the humans had left, Valthine called for the doors to be sealed. Privacy shields activated, blocking all outside signals. The council was alone now. "This is unacceptable," the military officer roared, breaking the silence. His name was Torvin, and he commanded the largest fleet in council space. "They have violated every law we hold sacred. We must respond with overwhelming force." "And how do you propose we do that?" asked another representative. She was small and covered in soft fur, but her species was known for their brilliant strategic minds. "They have ships positioned at our military bases. They have infiltrated our station. If we attack, they can strike back before we even mobilize." "They're bluffing," Torvin insisted. 200 ships cannot defeat our entire military. We have tens of thousands of vessels, which are scattered across council space," the furry representative pointed out. "By the time we gather them, the humans could cripple our infrastructure. They could destroy shipyards. They could cut supply lines. They've studied us, Torvin. They know where we're weak." Valthine listened to the argument go back and forth. Other council members joined in, some supporting military action, others urging caution. The debate grew heated. "Enough," Valthine said finally. His voice was quiet, but everyone stopped talking. "We are missing the larger question." "What question?" Torvin demanded. "How did they do this?" Valthine said. 6 months ago, these humans had barely left their own solar system. They had primitive ships and basic weapons. Now they've reverse-engineered our technology, built a fleet, and infiltrated our space. How is that possible? The chamber grew quiet again. It was a good question, a troubling question. A science officer stood up. Her species existed as energy patterns held in a containment suit. I may have an answer, Speaker. My team has been analyzing human behavior since first contact. We've noticed something unusual. Explain, Valthine ordered. Humans learn differently than most species, the science officer said. When we showed them our technology, we expected them to be impressed and intimidated. Most species react that way. They accept that we are superior and fall in line. But humans reacted differently. They asked questions. They took measurements. They analyzed everything we showed them. So they're curious, Torvin said dismissively. What does that matter? It's more than curiosity, the science officer continued. Humans have what they call reverse engineering. They can look at something they don't understand and figure out how it works. Then they improve it. We showed them fusion drives. They built better ones. We showed them energy shields. They made them more efficient. We thought we were demonstrating our superiority. Instead, we were teaching them. Valthine closed his eyes. The science officer was right. The council had made a terrible mistake. They had assumed the humans would react like every other species. They had never considered that humans might be different. There's something else, the science officer added. Human history is unlike any other species we've encountered. They've been fighting wars for their entire existence. Not just simple conflicts, but massive wars involving their entire species. They understand military strategy at a level most council species never develop. Because for them, war isn't rare. It's normal. Are you saying they're more dangerous than us? Someone asked nervously. I'm saying they're more experienced at violence, the science officer replied. The council has existed for 10,000 years in relative peace. We have wars occasionally, but they're small. Contained. Humans have been fighting constantly for thousands of years. Every generation learns from the last one. They've refined warfare to an art form. Torvin slammed his fist on his armrest. Then we should destroy them now, before they become even more dangerous. And how many council worlds would we lose in the process? The furry representative asked. You heard the human engineer. They have ships positioned at key locations. If we attack, they'll strike back. Even if we win eventually, the cost would be enormous. She's right, said another representative. We could defeat them, but it would weaken us significantly. And there are other threats in the galaxy. Species on our borders who watch for any sign of weakness. If we exhaust ourselves fighting the humans, we leave ourselves vulnerable. Valthine opened his eyes. The council was divided. Some wanted war. Others wanted peace. And he had to decide which path to take. Let me speak with the humans alone, Valthine said. Before we make any decisions, I want to understand them better. Is that wise? Torvin asked suspiciously. Probably not, Valthine admitted. But I want to hear what they truly want. Not demands spoken in front of 3,000 species, but honest conversation. Perhaps we can find a solution that avoids war. The council agreed, though many members looked unhappy about it. The privacy shields deactivated. Valthine sent a message requesting a private meeting with the human delegation. 10 minutes later, Valthine stood in a small conference room adjacent to the main chamber. It was designed for private negotiations, simple and functional. Hyejin, Jiwon, and 2 others entered. One was a young man who moved with the grace of a fighter pilot. The other was a small woman whose eyes seemed to calculate everything she saw. Thank you for meeting with us, Valthine said. May I know who your companions are? This is Taijin, Jiwon said, indicating the young man. He commands our flagship. And this is Mirai. She leads our weapons development program. Valthine gestured for them to sit. They did, looking relaxed and confident. He sat across from them, feeling ancient and tired. I want to understand, Valthine said. Why did you do this? Why bring a fleet? Why infiltrate our systems? You could have come peacefully. We would have listened. Would you? Hyejin asked. Really? Or would you have dictated terms and expected us to obey? Valthine was silent for a moment. She was right. The council had already decided what the humans needed to do. The meeting was supposed to be a formality. You're correct, Valthine admitted. We had already determined your fate. We expected you to submit. That's why we came prepared, Jiwon said. In human history, the weak are conquered. The strong survive. We chose to be strong. You risk everything on this gamble, Valthine said. If the council votes for war, your species could be extinct within a year. Maybe, Taijin said. He was the first time he'd spoken. His voice was calm and matter-of-fact. But you'd lose a lot, too. We've calculated the numbers. In the time it takes you to mobilize your full fleet, We could destroy or damage about 40% of your military infrastructure, your shipyards, your supply depots, your command centers. We can't win a long war, but we can make sure you lose a lot in a short one. And then there's the other factor, Miri added quietly. She had a soft voice, but something about her made Valthine nervous. You're not the only power in the galaxy. You have rivals, enemies, species that fear the Council or hate it. If we make you look weak, if we prove you can be hurt, what do you think they'll do? Valthine felt cold. She was right. The Council maintained order through perceived strength. If humanity bloodied them, even in defeat, other species might see an opportunity. The Council could face rebellions, invasions, chaos. So you hold us hostage, Valthine said bitterly. No, Jiwan said firmly. We're offering you a choice. You can fight us and win, but it will cost you dearly. Or you can accept us as equals and gain an ally. An ally? Valthine said skeptically. Why would we want you as allies? Because we're good at things you're not, Hyejin said. She pulled out a data pad and slid it across the table. Look at that, Valthine picked up the pad. It showed technical specifications for various devices. Weapons, shields, engines. All of them were marked as human designs. We took your technology and improved it, Hyejin explained. In 6 months, we made your fusion drives 30% more efficient. We made your weapons hit harder. We made your shields stronger. Imagine what we could do with more time. Imagine what we could do as partners instead of enemies. You're offering us your technology? Valthine asked, surprised. We're offering cooperation, Jiwan corrected. You have knowledge, resources, a vast network of worlds. We have innovation, adaptability, military expertise. Together we could be stronger than either of us alone. Valthine looked at the 4 humans sitting across from him. They were so different from Council species. More aggressive, more confident, but also more creative. He thought about what the science officer had said. Humans learned differently. They thought differently. I need to be honest with you, Valthine said slowly. Many Council members want war. They see you. The Council chamber filled again slowly. Representatives returned to their seats talking in hushed voices. Everyone knew something important was about to happen. The fate of humanity would be decided today. But more than that, the nature of the Council itself might change. Valthine stood at his podium organizing his thoughts. He had spent 2 hours in private discussions with various Council members. Some were easy to convince. Others remained hostile. A few were impossible to read. Torvin sat in his section, arms crossed and face hard. He had made his position clear. The humans must be made an example of. Any show of weakness would encourage other species to challenge Council authority. The furry strategist, whose name was Pelin, sat nearby. She had been easier to persuade. She understood the mathematics of war. The humans would lose, but the price would be heavy. Too heavy. Others were scattered throughout the chamber. Scientists who were intrigued by human innovation. Merchants who saw opportunity in new partnerships. Warriors who respected strength regardless of its source. And many who simply wanted peace and stability to continue. Hyejin, Jiwan, Taijun, and Mirai entered and stood in the center of the chamber. They looked calm, but Valthine could see the tension in their shoulders. They knew this was the critical moment. The Council will vote, Valthine announced. But first I wish to speak. The chamber fell silent. I have lived for 800 years, Valthine began. I have seen the Council grow from a handful of species to thousands. I have watched as we brought order to chaos, peace to war, prosperity to poverty. The Council has been humanity's greatest achievement. He paused. But perhaps we have grown too comfortable. Murmurs spread through the chamber. This was not what anyone expected. The humans came here today with weapons and threats, Valthine continued. Many of you are angry about this. I was angry too. But then I asked myself, why did they feel this was necessary? And I realized something troubling. He gestured to the humans standing below him. We contacted them 6 months ago. We told them they must follow our laws. We told them they must restrict their expansion. We told them they must submit to our authority. But we never asked them what they wanted. We never offered them a choice. We simply expected obedience. Because that is how the Council works, Torvin shouted. All species must follow Council law for civilization to function. Must they? Valthine asked. Or is that simply what we've always believed? He looked around the chamber. Tell me, how many species in this room joined the Council willingly as equals? How many came because they wanted to? not because they had no choice. The silence that followed was uncomfortable. Every species present knew the answer. Most had joined because the alternative was isolation or conquest. Few had been given real choice. The humans are different, Valthine said. They refuse to accept the order we offer, not because they are stupid or stubborn, but because they value freedom more than security, and they are willing to fight for that freedom even against impossible odds. Then they are fools, someone called out. Perhaps, Valthine agreed. Or perhaps they understand something we have forgotten. That freedom is worth fighting for. That dignity matters. That being safe but enslaved is not really safety at all. He held up the data pad Hygiene had given him. The humans reverse-engineered our technology in 6 months. They improved it. They innovated in ways our scientists never considered. And they did this while building a fleet and planning an operation that successfully infiltrated our most secure facility. He paused. Imagine what they could accomplish as our partners. Imagine what we could accomplish together. You speak of partnership, Torvin said coldly. But they came here with weapons. They threatened us. How can we trust such a species? They came with weapons because they believed it was the only way we would listen, Valthine replied. Were they wrong? Torvin had no answer for that. Jiwan stepped forward. May I speak, Honored Council? Valthine nodded. We did not come here to make enemies, Jiwan said. Her voice carried clearly through the vast chamber. We came here because we were summoned. Because you declared us criminals without ever discussing the matter with us. Because you expected us to obey laws we never agreed to follow. She walked slowly as she spoke, making eye contact with different council members. Humanity has a long history of resisting tyranny. We've fought against empires and dictators. We've rebelled against those who tried to control us. It's in our nature. Maybe that makes us difficult. Maybe that makes us dangerous. But it also makes us strong, and it makes us loyal to those who treat us with respect. Respect must be earned, a council member called out. We agree, Jiwan said. And we believe we've earned it today. We showed you that we're not helpless, that we can fight back if we must. But we also showed you that we're willing to talk, to negotiate, to find a peaceful solution, she paused. The question is whether you're willing to do the same. Mirai stepped forward next. She looked small and fragile compared to many of the alien species around her. But when she spoke, her voice was steady. I want to show you something, Mirai said. She pulled out a small device and activated it. Holographic displays appeared throughout the chamber. The displays showed technical diagrams, weapon systems, defense grids, power sources. All of them were council designs but modified, improved. These are innovations my team developed in the past 6 months, Mirai explained. Each one makes council technology better, more efficient, more powerful. We're sharing this with you freely, as a gesture of good faith. You could be lying, someone said suspiciously. These could be fakes designed to impress us. Test them, Mirai said simply. We'll provide complete specifications. Build prototypes. Compare them to your current technology. You'll see we're telling the truth. Pelin, the furry strategist, spoke up. If what you say is true, these improvements would increase our military effectiveness by at least 20%. Perhaps more. Closer to 30%, Mirai corrected. And that's just the beginning. We have ideas for much more significant improvements, but we'll only share them if we're partners, not subjects. Taejun hadn't spoken yet. He stood quietly watching the council with alert eyes. But now Hyejin nodded to him and he stepped forward. I'm a pilot, Taejun said. I've flown ships in combat simulations. I've tested our fleet against every scenario we could imagine, and I know that if we fight you, we'll lose. Eventually, your numbers are too great. Then why resist? Torvin demanded. Because losing slowly is better than surrendering quickly, Taejun replied. If we submit now, we become your servants forever. But if we fight, even if we lose, we go down as warriors. We go down as a species that refuse to kneel. And maybe somewhere in the galaxy, another species will hear about us. Another species will be inspired. Another species will say, if the humans could stand up to the council, maybe we can too. He let that sink in for a moment. But here's what I really think, Taejun continued. I think you don't want that. I think you don't want to spend years fighting us. I think you don't want to lose thousands of ships and millions of lives just to prove a point. I think you're smart enough to see that cooperation is better than conquest. And if we're not? Someone asked. Then we fight, Tajin said simply. And win or lose, we make it hurt. The chamber fell silent again. The four humans stood together, looking small in the vast space. But somehow they didn't seem weak. Valthine raised his staff. The council will now vote. The question is simple. Do we go to war with humanity, or do we offer them membership as equals? This is unprecedented, Torvin objected. We cannot simply grant membership to a species that has violated our laws and threatened us. They violated laws they never agreed to, Valthine pointed out, and they threatened us only after we threatened them first. Perhaps the unprecedented nature of this situation requires an unprecedented response. I call for debate before the vote, Pellin said. This decision is too important to make hastily. Valthine agreed. For the next hour, council members spoke. Some argued for war, claiming that allowing the humans to succeed would undermine council authority. Others argued for peace, pointing out the costs and risks of conflict. Scientists spoke about the value of human innovation. Merchants discussed potential trade opportunities. Military officers debated strategy and tactics. Philosophers questioned whether the council had the moral right to force species to join against their will. Through it all, the four humans stood silent and waited. Finally, Valthine called for quiet. We have debated enough. Now we must decide. All those in favor of declaring war on humanity, signal now. Lights appeared throughout the chamber as council members cast their votes. Valthine counted them, his heart heavy. Too many. Far too many. All those in favor of offering humanity membership as equals, signal now. More lights appeared. Valthine counted again. The numbers were close. Dangerously close. All those who abstained from voting, signal now. A few final lights appeared. Valthine calculated the totals 3 times to be sure. Then he looked at the humans, his expression unreadable. The vote is complete, he announced. 2,789 votes for war. 2,812 votes for peace. 99 abstentions. The chamber erupted in noise. Some species cheered. Others shouted in anger. But Valthine raised his staff and demanded silence. By a margin of 23 votes, Valthine said 3 days had passed since the vote. The council chamber was empty now, quiet and dim. Most representatives had returned to their homeworlds to explain what had happened. Some were pleased with the outcome. Others were furious. But all of them understood that something fundamental had changed. Admiral Deho stood at the window of the human delegation quarters, looking out at the stars. Behind him, his team was packing equipment and preparing for departure. The fleet would leave soon, returning to Earth with news of their success. You look troubled, Hyejin said, walking up beside him. We won. Why aren't you celebrating? Because I know what we really did here, Deho said quietly. We bluffed. We took a massive risk, and we got incredibly lucky. It wasn't luck, Hyejin protested. We planned everything carefully. We studied their weaknesses. We positioned our forces perfectly. We positioned 250 ships against an empire with tens of thousands, Deho said. If they had called our bluff, if they had attacked immediately, we would have been destroyed. Yes, we would have hurt them, but we would have lost. But they didn't call our bluff, Hyejin pointed out. We read them correctly. We understood that they valued stability more than pride. That's not luck. That's strategy. Deho smiled slightly. Maybe you're right. Or maybe we're just very fortunate that Speaker Valthine is a wise leader. If someone like Torvin had been in charge, we'd probably be at war right now. Jiwan entered the room carrying a datapad. She looked tired but satisfied. The final agreements are ready for signature. Everything we discussed has been formalized. We have full membership rights, voting privileges, access to council resources, and most importantly, complete autonomy over our internal affairs. Any restrictions? Deho asked. We have to follow the same laws as other member species, Jiwan said. But we helped write those sections of the agreement. Nothing that limits our growth or freedom. Just basic rules about not attacking other members, not engaging in piracy, things like that. Reasonable, Deho agreed. There's one more thing, Jiwan added. The council wants us to establish a joint technology development program. They're very interested in our reverse engineering capabilities. Several species have already requested partnerships. How generous of them, Mirai said dryly, walking into the room. 6 months ago they wanted to conquer us. Now they want to work with us. That's diplomacy, Jiwan said with a slight smile. Everyone acts according to their interests. Now that we're strong enough to be useful, we're also worth cooperating with. Tajin was the last to join them. He'd been coordinating the fleet's departure schedule. All ships are ready to leave. The Council has provided safe passage corridors. We can jump to Earth in about 6 hours. Good, Deho said. He turned to face his team. Before we go, I want to say something. What we accomplished here was extraordinary. We faced an empire that spans the galaxy, and we made them treat us as equals. But we need to remember something important. What's that? Tajin asked. We didn't win through superior force, Deho said. We won through intelligence, creativity, and courage. We studied our enemy. We found their weaknesses. We took calculated risks, and we convinced them that fighting us would cost more than accepting us. He paused. That's how humanity survives. Not through being the strongest, but through being the smartest. And the most stubborn, Hijin added with a grin. That too, Deho agreed. Never underestimate the power of simply refusing to give up. A chime sounded at the door. Hijin checked the display. It's Speaker Valthine. He's asking to meet with you, Admiral. Send him in, Deho said. The door opened, and Valthine entered. He looked different somehow. Less formal. Almost friendly. Admiral Deho, Valthine said. I wanted to speak with you before you departed. Of course, Speaker. What can I do for you? Valthine walked to the window and stood beside Deho looking out at the stars. I wanted to thank you. Deho raised an eyebrow. Thank me. For bringing a fleet to threaten your council? For teaching us a lesson we needed to learn, Valthine said. The council has existed for 10,000 years. In that time, we've become very sure of ourselves, very comfortable. We assumed that our way was the only way, that our order was the only order. He shook his head. You showed us that we were wrong. We just wanted to be free, Deho said, I know. And that desire, that willingness to fight for freedom even against impossible odds, that's something we had forgotten. The founding species of the Council fought for their freedom once too. 10,000 years ago, we rebelled against our own oppressors. We built this Council to be different. To be fair, to be just, he sighed. But somewhere along the way, we became what we once fought against. We became the ones demanding submission instead of offering partnership. What will you do now? Deho asked. I've already started, Valthine said. I've proposed reforms to the Council. We're going to review how we interact with new species. We're going to offer real choices instead of ultimatums. We're going to remember that cooperation is stronger than conquest. Some Council members won't like that, Deho observed. No, they won't, Valthine agreed. Torvin has already filed 3 formal complaints. But the vote was close, Admiral. 23 votes decided between peace and war. That means many Council members were already questioning our methods. Your arrival simply forced us to confront those questions, Mirai spoke up. What about the technological exchange? Are you really interested in our innovations, or was that just part of the peace agreement? Oh, we're very interested, Valthine said, turning to look at her. Your improvements to our designs are remarkable. Our scientists are excited to study your methods. But more than that, we're interested in your perspective. You think differently than Council species. You approach problems from unique angles. That diversity of thought could benefit everyone. We'll share what we can, Mirai said, but we'll keep some secrets. Just in case, Valthine smiled. I would expect nothing less. Trust must be earned on both sides. A comfortable silence fell over the group. Outside the window, human ships could be seen preparing for departure. They would return to Earth as heroes, the species that had defied the Galactic Council and won. Can I ask you something? Valthine said. What would you have done if the vote had gone the other way? If we had chosen war? Deho looked at him steadily. We would have fought. We would have hit you hard and fast, destroying as much as we could before you could respond. We would have made you regret starting the war. And then, when defeat was inevitable, we would have retreated to Earth and prepared for the last battle. You would have fought to extinction? Valthine asked quietly. If necessary, Deho said. Humanity has nearly gone extinct several times in our history. Ice ages, plagues, wars, we've come back from the edge before. We would have done it again if we had to. That's terrifying, Valthine said. That's humanity, Hijin said. We're survivors. It's what we do best. Valthine nodded slowly. I'm glad we chose peace. The galaxy is better with humanity in it than without it. Agreed, Deho said. Though I have to tell you, there were moments when I thought we'd made a terrible mistake. When I thought our bluff would be called and we'd all die. Were you afraid? Valthine asked. Terrified, Deho admitted. But we did it anyway. Fear doesn't matter if the cause is important enough. That might be the most human thing I've heard yet, Valthine said with a slight smile. The conversation continued for another hour. They discussed plans for the future, trade agreements, cultural exchanges, joint military exercises to help the Council understand human tactics. It was strange talking about cooperation with someone who had been an enemy just days ago. But it felt right. Finally, Valthine stood to leave. Safe travels, Admiral. I look forward to working with humanity in the future. As do we, Speaker, Daiho said. They shook hands, human style. Valthine's grip was firm but gentle. When Valthine had gone, the team finished their preparations. Within an hour, they were aboard the Indomitable, ready to depart. The rest of the fleet had already formed up around them. Daiho sat in the captain's chair on the bridge. Around him, his crew worked efficiently. These were the same people who had risked everything on a desperate gamble, who had followed him into potential death without hesitation. All ships report ready, Taijin announced from the pilot station. Communications are clear, added the communications officer. Engineering systems are optimal, Hyejin reported. Daiho looked at the main view screen. The Council station was visible, massive and impressive, but somehow less intimidating than it had been 3 days ago. They had walked into that station as unknowns. They were leaving as equals. Send a message to Earth, Daiho ordered. Tell them we're coming home. Tell them we succeeded. Tell them that humanity is now a full member of the Galactic Council. The communications officer nodded and began transmitting. One more thing, Daiho added. Tell them that we did it our way. We didn't beg. We didn't crawl. We stood tall and made them see us as equals. Message sent, sir, the communications officer confirmed. Good, Daiho said. He looked around the bridge at his crew. I'm proud of all of you. What we did here will be remembered for generations. We proved that humanity deserves its place among the stars. We also proved we're absolutely crazy, Taijin said with a grin, threatening and